Welcome back. You're watching World Business Today.
Now, tonight we kick off a new series here on World Business Today where the aim is to get inside the heads of top CEOs. What's their biggest worry? What have they learned from their biggest mistake? Which leaders do they admire? As you'll see, we're also looking for questions from people like you, our viewers. On Executive Insider, we begin with a man who turned his modest savings into, well, a fortune. In 1965, American Jim Thompson made a bold decision while living in Japan. He cashed in his return plane ticket and used the money to start his own business. With $1,000, he set up a moving company that today spans 250 locations in 55 countries. Crown Worldwide is now the largest privately held logistics company in the world. And as for that $1,000 investment, well, according to Crown, today its annual revenues top $550 million US.
I actually had 500 in my account, my bank account, and then I traded in the ticket. They gave me another 400 or 500, so I ended up having, between the two of them, I had about 1,000. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's how it started. And we just didn't, we had to really get our clients to pay us in advance, which is not normal in our industry. But they agreed to do it, and so we would use their money to pay the bills, the underlying bills, and anyhow, eventually we got a steady stream of income, and it picked up and worked.
As an entrepreneur like that, setting up, do you have a business plan per se? Or?
You know, it's an interesting question because I often hear this word vision, and I guess I understand it, but in the early days of a business, I think your vision is, can I make payroll next week? And that's as far as you can go. And then, you know, you can daydream about where it could go, but it's really getting through the early stages.
Well, now 250 locations, 55 countries, 4,000 employees, which brings with it its own issues. We've got a question from an MBA student touching on this topic. Let's listen to what they've got to say.
The chance is very high that you manage a team coming from different parts of the world and background. So how do you manage such a diversified team?
I think the world now is quite global. So while that's a good question, the students, is because we do have a diversified team. Here in Hong Kong, for example, we have some from India, we have some from the US and Australia and different countries. And they seem to integrate very well. They all know their roles, they get along. So it's not a hard job at all to manage them.
Okay, we've got another question from a Hong Kong businessman.
Yeah, okay.
When you run a company of, you know, a mid-sized company, and when it grows substantially, so what steps do you take to manage the growth of the company?
It's been the best advice I've ever had, was not to try to sort of hit a home run every time you have the opportunity. Just to control the growth, keep your finances stable, and then go the next step.
What's your biggest, after 45 years, mistake you've made, do you think?
It narrows down to failing to communicate with my staff properly. I was in the throes of buying out a partner who I had at that time, so I had to scrape up a lot of money, and I didn't communicate with my management team as to what the game was, so to speak. And as a result, a lot of them left, and some left to form a competitive company, which is still so I learned from that you have to keep your management team, and as much as possible the rest of your staff, really aware of what you're doing, what's the plan.
What are you reading at the moment?
One book I love, I'm almost finished with it, is called Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. It's by a man named Jack Weatherford, and you know, Genghis Khan was quite an impressive man of his day, and I'm just fascinated by what he did achieve and how he changed so much of the world.
And Jim Thompson's also said that if he weren't in logistics, well, he might have been a pilot. He does have a degree in aeronautical engineering, and he used to fly light planes. Three leaders he admires: the former HSBC chairman William Purvis, Ronald Reagan, and Margaret Thatcher. So what do you want to ask a CEO? It's all fair game, so what keeps you up at night, for example? How do you handle balancing work-play? Are you paid too much? Head to our blog, cnn.com/biz360, and pitch in. Maggie.
I suspect that compensation issue is one that's going to come up an awful lot. It tends to these days. Listen, it's the first day of a new trading week on Wall Street. Stocks are trending to the upside. It's a change from the tone we saw earlier this morning when we were watching futures market. Allison Cossack is standing by at the New York Stock Exchange now. for more on the early moves. And Allison, do we know why we seem to have a more positive tone? I assume they're tracking